The Pokémon world is constantly growing. Right now, there are 898 different creatures, each one with a different inspiration and origin. Some are more complex than others though. Today I'll talk about some of these origins. Hey there, I'm Deltadex and welcome to a new video. Pokémon is one of the most successful franchises of Nintendo, and since the first game back in 1996, it kept expanding and expanding. In the first Pokémon game, there were only 151 Pokémon, but there are almost 1,000 now. And even if it doesn't look like it, every single one of them is based on something. Everyone has a meaning to their names, and in a way or another, there is a reason for their typing. And that's basically what this section is about. The Deltadex, big brain name, I'll talk about 10 different evolution lines and explain the reason to their names in English and Japanese, and maybe in other languages. What are they based on? And if the reason of their typing is a bit more than just it shoots fire so it's a fire type, I'll explain their typing as well. And it is important having in mind that I'll talk about evolution lines. If an evolution line has more than 3 Pokémon, I'll talk about all of them and it will count as one, as well as a Pokémon that can't evolve or doesn't evolve from anything will count as one as well. Legendaries and Pokémon that are usually paired together will be grouped in the same video, but each one will be counted as a different evolution line. And that's it. If you're the kind of person that enjoys discovering the secrets behind everything, like me, and to like Pokémon, you'll love this section. But how could I begin the video without promoting myself, huh? If you're not subscribed yet, I thank you if you subscribe. Especially if you like this video, you have nothing to lose. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter. And if you can support me even more somehow, that'd be amazing. Oh, by the way, I already uploaded 2 videos of this section in my Spanish channel, so I won't be talking about the Pokémon I talked about in those ones. If you speak Spanish, be sure to check them out. Or maybe they have captions, I don't remember honestly. With that said, we can slide into our first Pokémon. And what's the best way to start if not with the very first Pokémon? Bulbasaur. This little pole is some sort of amphibian with a huge bulb on its back, which makes it a grass type, and it may be a poison type because the bulb is poisonous, maybe? I don't know. Bulbasaur is actually based on a frog, on a Bulbasaur to be more exact, a prehistoric frog. Not only that, but Bulbasaur is actually based on both Ivysaur and Venusaur, its evolutions, as Bulbasaur was the last one to be designed. The bulb on its back resembles an onion. Now about the name, the English one might be a bit obvious. Bulbasaur comes from the words bulb and saur, which means lizard in ancient Greek, and is used frequently in the names of different lizards and dinosaurs. But the Japanese name is very interesting. Bulbasaur's Japanese name is Fushigi Dane, which comes from the words Fushigi, strange, and Dane, seed, meaning then strange seed. But Fushigi Dane can be literally translated as strange, isn't it? Being the very first Pokémon in the Pokédex and serving as an example as to what can we expect in the franchise. At level 16, Bulbasaur evolves into Ivysaur. Ivysaur retains the typing. His bulb opened to reveal a flower that hasn't fully bloomed yet. Overall, Ivysaur is pretty similar to Bulbasaur when it comes to origins. It is also based on the Bulbasaur, but this time, due to being the first one of the 3 designs, Ivysaur isn't based on Venusaur. As for the flower, the Bulbapedia says that it is based on a Rafflesia, and honestly, I don't see it, so let's just say it's just a random bug. While the leaves resemble those of the palms. The name Ivysaur is a mix of, yet again, saur and ivy, a kind of plant that climbs walls and trees. The Japanese name is Fushigi So, which is a mix of, yet again, Fushigi and So, which means grass, so it will be translated to strange grass, but it can be literally translated to it seems strange. When Ivysaur reaches level 32, it evolves into Venusaur. When compared with Ivysaur, Venusaur is a lot more bulkier and, well, big. Its flower fully bloomed now and it's also pretty big. Being essentially a bigger Bulbasaur, it shares the same origins as its predecessors. It is based on frogs, especially the Bilzebufo, but also on the common toad or the Colorado River toad, which are poisonous, possibly justifying Venusaur's poison type. And it is also based on Ivysaur, which was designed before Venusaur. The flower resembles the Rafflesia arnoldii, but it kinda looks like a pun too, doesn't it? The name Venusaur is a combination of the word saur, just like the pre-evolutions, and either venom or, more likely, Venus, referring to the Venus flytrap, a plant known for eating bugs and spiders. The Japanese name Fushigi-bana comes from the words fushigi, which I already talked about, and hana, which means flower, so the name will mean strange flower. Venusaur also has two different forms. The first one is Mega Venusaur, which it has access to with the Venusaurite. The main change in this form is the plant of its back, which is bigger with more different plants, causing Venusaur's legs to become sturdier. This means Venusaur's weight grows a lot, as well as its height. The second form it has is Gigantamax Venusaur. In this form, unlike every Dynamax and Gigantamax Pokémon, Venusaur becomes colossal and gains a lot of power. In this form, Venusaur resembles a tank, or something like that. I swear I've seen tanks that look like this. Moving on, let's go with a more short one. Pachirisu is a small electric-type squirrel designed to be the Pikachu of the Sinnoh region, which causes not only the electric type, but also the cheeks to be like that. There isn't really a lot to analyze here. As I already said, Pachirisu is a squirrel, and that's it. Its tail has some spikes, which may be a reference to static electricity, which causes the hair to turn spiky. As for the name, it is a global one. Pachirisu is a combination of the Japanese onomatopoeia pachi pachi, used for electric crackling, and risu, the Japanese word for squirrel. Now I'll talk about a Pokemon I personally wanted to talk about, Snoome. Snoome is a Ice-Bug type Pokemon introduced in the 8th generation. Snoome seems to take inspiration from the jewel caterpillar, which, just like Snoome, has a gelatinous and sometimes transparent mass covering its exoskeleton, as well as in the larva of the Arctic Gulliver moth, a species that can endure extremely low temperatures. When it comes to the name, the English one comes from snow, warm, and considering its great appetite, maybe from nom as well, which is often used when eating. The Japanese name is pretty similar. Snoome is known as Yukihami in Japan, which comes from yuki, the Japanese word for snow, and hami, which means eating, so it will be like snow eating or something like that. Bonus points for the German name, which is the same as the English one, but adding another nom at the end, which sounds cuter, I think. Snoome evolves into Frostmoth when leveling up, with high friendship at night. Frostmoth keeps the same typing as Snoome despite no being a flying bug. To be more precise, it is based on the aforementioned Arctic Gulliver moth, as well as on the giant silk moth of the Arctias genus. Its wings might take inspiration from the glass-winged butterfly. The name Frostmoth is a mix of frost and moth. Meanwhile, the Japanese name, Mosno, comes from the English words moth and snow. Jumping now to the 5th generation, I'll talk about the psychic type Pokemon Munna. Munna has pretty detailed concept, as it draws inspiration from two very different things. On one side we have koros, traditional Japanese incense burners used in tea ceremonies, which are usually pig-shaped and sometimes with some kind of pattern. unlike the one I use as an example, but you get the idea. On the other hand, it is based on the Baku, a Chinese and Japanese mythological creature that resembles a tapir, which eats the dreams of people just like Muna. The name is generally globalized except in German. Muna may be a mix to the Japanese word for dream, mu, and luna, moon in some languages like Latin and Spanish, or maybe Hana, which, as I already said when I talked about Bulbasaur, means flower, because of its floral pattern. In German, Muna is called Somnium, which is a combination of Somnium, Latin for dream, and Miam, which stands for jam. When Muna is exposed to a moonstone, it evolves into a Musharna. Just like Muna, Musharna is a psychic type Pokémon based on Chorus and Bacchus. With Musharna, the influence of Chorus is more obvious, as it is always emanating some kind of mist or smoke or whatever from its body. Musharna is also a global name except for Germany, and it comes from musha musha, the Japanese onomatopoeia for eating, and, just like Muna, the Japanese word for dream and luna. Its German name, Somnivora, is a mix between the Latin word somnium, meaning dream, and vorare, meaning to devour. Next, I'm gonna talk about Salandit, a poison fire type Pokémon. Salandit may take inspiration from the Japanese fire-bellied newt, a species of newt endemic to Japan. This species is extremely toxic, being even fatal to humans in a short span of time, justifying the poison type of Salandit. Furthermore, this species usually have red dots and other marks, just like Salandit. In legends, salamanders are usually related to fire, and that's why Salandit is also a fire type. To top it all, Salandit is also inspired in bandits and robbers. Inspiration is especially obvious in its head, which looks like a ski mask. The name Salandit at this point might have an obvious origin. Salandit is a mix of salamander and bandit. As for the Japanese name, Yatou Mori is a mix of the Japanese words Yatou, meaning burglar, and Imori, meaning newt. So Yatou Mori will mean burglar newt. When Salandit reaches level 33, and only if it is female, it evolves into Salazzle. The fact that only female Salandits evolve might be because Salazzle could be inspired by the Mo'os, dragon-like lizards of the Hawaiian mythology, said to be female and to transform into women to trick men and devour them. They are also said to appear near fire, which matches with the fire typing given by the still present Japanese fire-bellied newt influence. It might also be inspired by the New Mexico whiptail, a female-only species of lizards. The name Salazzle is a combination of salamander and sisal. Meanwhile, the Japanese name, which is Ennulto, could be a mix of En, flame, or En, bewitching, and the English word newt. Let's go for a fun one because why not? Klefki is a key-like steel fire Pokémon, and it might not look like it, but the typing might be justified by its inspiration. Well, keys are usually made of steel, so that makes sense. Keys and other small items can be commonly lost. Some cultures, like the pagans, blame fairies for these losses. Klefki itself has a fixation on stealing keys, so that explains its fire type. The name could be a mix of the words clef, the French word for key, let's remember Klefki's generation was based on French, and either key or kleptomaniac, as Klefki likes stealing keys. The Japanese name Klefki comes directly from the aforementioned French word clef, but its French name ironically doesn't come from this word. The French name is Toroselan, a combination of the words Toroso, meaning keychain, and Gobelin, goblin. Jumping to the third generation, let's go with Barbot. Barbot is a long and slim fish, and the fact is that it is based on the pond loach, which shares some traits with Barbot besides the looks, like using its whiskers to orientate itself or burying itself to hide, which might give it the ground type. The name Barbot comes from the word barb, referring to the ones Barbot has around its mouth, and loach, which is, well, the kind of fish Barbot is. But the Japanese name is far better. Dojochi is a mix between the Japanese word for loach, dojo, and, well, the English word loach. Reaching level 30 makes Barbot become a Whiscash, which retains its typing, although this time it may be because of another reason. This time Whiscash seems to be based on the Namazu, sometimes referred to as Onamazu, a catfish that, according to the Japanese mythology, can cause earthquakes, something Whiscash is also capable of. Its name comes from the whisker and mustache, but cash could also come from catfish, the species of fish Whiscash belongs to. The Japanese name Namazun comes from the aforementioned catfish from the Japanese mythology, but it can also simply mean catfish. And now let's go for the big ones, the legendaries. Today I wanted to talk about the legendary beasts, Riku, Entei, and Suicune. Like every legendary group, the beasts share some points in common in their origin, this time being in universe. The three beasts were inside the brass tower when it burned. Ho-Oh reincarnated them, turning into the beasts we know today. What they were originally is unknown, but it's often thought that they were originally a Jolteon, a Flareon, and a Vaporeon respectively, as they are biologically similar Pokémon with the same typing, so they might be based on the three evolutions. But those are the common points. Every beast is unique in many other ways. The first one is Riku, the electric type one. Riku is clearly inspired in a tiger, being more precise the saber-toothed tiger, although it wasn't really a species of tiger. It could also get inspiration from Raiju, the thunder beast, the companion of Raijin, the thunder god of the Japanese mythology. Furthermore, the cloud on its back resembles a cumulonimbus cloud, a kind of cloud that commonly causes thunderstorms. The electric type represents the thunder that hit the brass tower. Raiku's name is a global one, just like the other beasts' names. Riku can mean lightning or something like Lord of the Thunder in Japanese, depending on the kanji. The second one is one of the games given to Raijin, as well as the literal translation of Lei Gong, the god of thunder of the Chinese mythology. Now comes Entei, the fire-type beast. The original concept for Entei was that of a lion, and although there are still some features that make it look like a lion, it was made more ambiguous so it didn't look like a specific animal, so it can also look like a cat or a dog. Ultimately, and if we look for a more special origin for a legendary, Entei resembles Baron, a creature from the Balinese mythology, usually portrayed as a lion with red face and a lot of fur. The smoke-like cloud on his back resembles the smoke that comes out of volcanoes. The fire type of Entei seems to represent the flames that burned Brass Tower. Entei's name comes from the Japanese word Entei, which literally means Flame Emperor. Finally, it's Suicune's turn, the water type of the three beasts. Despite being water type, Suicune is commonly connected with the wind, especially the north wind. The water type represents the rain that extinguished the fire of the Brass Tower. Hitomi Sato, the designer of the legendary beasts, said that he wanted Suicune to look like a leopard, so Suicune could be a reference to Fujin, the Japanese god of wind, who wore leopard skin. The hair-like thing on its back is reminiscent of the Aurora Borealis. Suicune's name literally means monarch of the water in Japanese, but it can also come from the Japanese word suisho, which means crystal, referring to the crystal-like shape on its head, which later named the game Suicune is the face of. And with this, we're finished. As you can see, everything has an explanation. There are more thoughts into things than it might seem at first glance. I hope you got to learn some things about the Pokémon I talked about today and see them with a new light, because I totally did. Be sure to suggest more Pokémon you would like to know more about, and if I haven't talked about them yet, I'll have them in mind. Before finishing the video, remember that you can subscribe if you aren't yet, and like the video if you enjoyed it. Share it with your friends and follow me on Twitter, it helps a lot. Thank you so much. And now I don't have anything else to say, so I'll leave it here. Thank you so much once again and see you soon.